Good afternoon and welcome to 3 in the Key. I'm your host, Ben Allen. Today, we'll take a look at Joel Embiid's decision to go to the NBA draft, and we will have Farzin Vousoughian, Jackson Long, and Ryan McCarthy over in the bar to have our debate today. But first, let's get you up to date on what you missed. It could be called Indecision 2014, but after back and forth of leaving and not being sure if he should leave, KU freshman center Joel Embiid has put the KU fans out of their misery. He has declared his intent for the NBA draft. The 7-foot Cameroonian missed the NCAA tournament with a back injury and missed senior night as well to end his KU career on an abrupt note. Embiid will likely be a top 3 pick in the NBA draft along with guard Andrew Wiggins. The basketball community has lost a member of its family today, and no, she has never played in a game. Princess Lacey Hallsworth, a young cancer patient, died late Tuesday evening. She became most well known after ESPN ran a story on her and her relationship with Michigan State power forward Adrian Payne. She had been suffering from neuroblastoma when a visit from her favorite player Payne sparked an unusual relationship. Payne carried her around on the court on senior night, and she also received a championship hat along with the rest of the team. Our thoughts and prayers from everyone here at 3 in the Key goes out to Hallsworth family and the rest of Michigan State. One of our sister programming, Good Morning KU, will have a very special segment on Monday morning. KU football legend Gale Sayers was at Crossroads this morning with one of our own guests,
Farzin Vousoughian. Kansas Jayhawks with Charlie Weiss entering their third year. Any thoughts as Kansas continues to go? It seems like they're starting to make a little bit of progress with him as their head coach.
Let's hope so. Okay, I like Charlie. He's a nice person, but we need to get better players. No question about that. We have to get some better players, and hopefully, Charlie came from Notre Dame, and hopefully he got some keys back at Notre Dame that we could use, or we can maybe bring some of those players to Kansas. But we just have to get some better players.
The man who did the interview, Mr. Farzin Vousoughian, is here with us today as a guest and to talk a little bit about the interview. Farzin, what was it like to interview a person the caliber of Gale Sayers?
Well, it's always very exciting. You have that opportunity to interview someone like Gale Sayers, a guy who's coming on through this program, one of the notable alumni. Anyone who comes through KU, if you ask about players in the past who played for KU, whether it's football or basketball, they can name Gale Sayers. A lot of people can, and it's an honor to be able to have that opportunity to interview someone like him. We've got to give a big thank you to Q Wright, who's a coworker of mine at KJHK. She's actually related to Gale Sayers, so had it not been for her, and she had a big hand in making this happen, so had it not been for her, we would not have been able to do that. So she definitely deserves a big shout out on this show.
What was your favorite part during the interview of listening to him? What was your favorite part, I guess?
I don't know if I have a favorite part. I just really enjoyed the moment. I really did. I think one of the things I really like, this is a guy who I had never met before. I've seen clips of him, in interviews, clips of him playing on the field, but I'd never spoken to him before prior to that. And just kind of seeing, what a gentleman he was, and just a stand-up guy, just being able to take that time to give the interview, because a lot of people don't do this, actually, once they retire. They're off doing things, they're too busy. But Gale was gracious enough to give us a few minutes of his time, and I think that alone is my favorite part.
Well, Farzin, thank you again for coming on with us today. And he will stay tuned for the debate segment, and we will jump right back into that with Farzin, Jackson Long, and Ryan McCarthy. Stay tuned.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Well, welcome back to 3 in the Key. Sticking with our debate topic, we have 3 guys here today from all over campus. We have KJHK's own Jackson Long. We have a former Kansan editor, Ryan McCarthy here, and of the Topeka Capital Journal. And we also have current editor and basically running the show at KJHK, Farzin Vousoughian here today. We will go ahead and get started with our point system and get you going here. Our first question today, guys, will be, did Joel Embiid, who decided he will be going to the NBA today, did he decide to make the right decision?
Absolutely. I mean, look, this guy's got back problems. What if he comes back for another year and suffers another injury? I mean, at that point, he's never going to be a top 5 pick again. NBA scouts are going to be too afraid to take him that high. And at that point, you're going to ruin your chances. This is the best opportunity to go. I mean, look at I know this is a different sport, but look at I think it was Michael Smith from Louisville, Michael Bush, I think.
Running back.
Running back. Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you. I got mixed up with with McFadden for some reason. But anyway, that guy was a first-round pick. He got injured, and he fell, I think, to the 4th or 5th round. Went to the Raiders. I mean, that's a situation right there where you look, hey, go as soon as you can. When you're touted to go that high, go. And I think Joel Embiid did the right thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think he definitely made the right decision. If he's got to rehab a little more, I mean, you might as well get paid to do it. So I think he made the right decision. Looking at the press conference, it seemed like he wanted to stay. He wanted to be here for a little longer. But with that much money on the table, it's kind of hard not to say something and not take the money.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the right decision, but I also think he could have made a wrong decision here. I think it's a win-win situation. Self said it in his press conference earlier today. He had 2 good options because he stays and he gets a lot of maturity and extra time because he's only been playing the game for 3 years.
Yeah.
I think maturity is his biggest downfall right now. He doesn't have a driver's license. He just learned to drive on a country road the other day. But on the same accord, if an injury happens, it's a big mistake. He's a top 5 pick, and it is a profession and a career for him, so the money does matter.
And Farzin and I were talking about this beforehand. Embiid doesn't have to make an impact right away. Everybody's expecting him to learn a little bit and eventually get there in a couple of years, eventually to be the all-star caliber player that he has the potential to be.
With that in mind, though, I think he would have eventually gotten there anyway. If he would have went in the draft he wouldn't have stayed more than his sophomore year, but if he would have stayed another year, he's still going to be taken in that top 5. I don't think the injury problems are that big of a concern. I do think it's a right versus right decision. I mean, it's a good choice either way.
Finishing off on a strong point there with the right versus right decision. The first point of the day will be going to Mr. Jackson Long. For our second topic of the day, we look at the NCAA Tournament Championship. We saw UConn basically dismantle Kentucky towards the end with their ability to be able to be in control. The question for you guys is, does experience trump talent?
I guess when you have 2 experienced guards, that's the really thing that trumps talent, in my opinion. When you guys got Shabazz Napier, Ryan Boatwright, those 2 guys are incredible basketball players. I honestly think Ryan Boatwright might be the better of the 2 by the end of the time, but he might not have as many championships as Shabazz or anything like that. But I think if you have 2 guards, you can go anywhere with a 6-game tournament coming in that way. So.
Yeah, it's a 6-game tournament. It's crazy every time, and we've talked about it multiple times. It's madness, truly. But you're right, Shabazz Napier's probably the X factor in this game, and he was the tournament's most valuable player, and that's why I think the experience does matter, because Aaron Harrison, probably more athletic, more length, but I would take Shabazz earlier in the draft than I would take Harrison because he's more controlled. He's a great passer. He has more refined game. If Harrison stays 4 years and does senior year like Napier, maybe Harrison's a better point guard, but Napier's been there 4 years, and I think that's why he should be the number 1 pick the number 1 point guard picked in the draft.
I think it kind of varies from year to year. I mean, look, just a couple of years ago, Kentucky had a lot of young talent, and they were able to pull it off. Of course, it was a couple of years ago against Kansas. I mean, they were close this year. They really were. Look at another team. I think another good example for this year is Kansas, a team that was very young, not a whole lot of upperclassmen on the team, at least in the starting lineup. And they're a team that had a lot of success, but when it came to tournament time, I mean, they didn't go very well. So I think for the most part, I think experience does triumph talent because those guys are mature. They've been there before. They know what it's like. They know the do's and don'ts. And when you go through that experience, you'll know how to do it your second go around. And I think that's why UConn was able to pull it off.
Yeah, I think on a consistent basis, experience does trump talent. You saw Kentucky win, like you said, but they also were in the NIT last year, and so they lost to Robert Morris in the first round, the prior, and then they separate 2 championship games back and forth, sandwiched in between as an NIT loss in the first round. So in a consistent basis, but you're right, talent does definitely fit well into the mix because they made a couple championships.
All right, well, ending that off on a very quiet note here now. The point we'll be going to for the second point of the game, Farzin Vousoughian. Third topic. After going a little bit with that topic that we were just talking about there, should players be required to stay longer than the 1 year that is required in the NCAA for basketball? Let's get started with you.
I think it comes down to a money issue here, and I think the one and done rule is okay at this point, but I think it resolves back to the original point of should athletes be compensated. That's a question we may address later in the show, but I think that's an important point to look at because 1 year, yes, I think it adds the maturity factor, But during that 1 year, a lot of kids want to go early when maybe they shouldn't have, and they should stay in college another year because they need an extra year. They need to get that money, and if it's a financial situation, then yeah. But it all comes down to the moolah, and really that's what kids really want to go to the NBA for.
Yeah, I think you look at some of these players, and you mentioned, a personal factor does come into play here. I think Ben McLemore was a good example of it, a guy who's gone through a lot. We've read stories about it. It just kind of depends on that too. But I think Jermaine O'Neal put it best in an interview a long time ago. If people at the age of 18 can go to the Army, shouldn't people at the age of 18 be allowed to be given the option to go to the NBA if that opportunity is open? I definitely think so. I mean, we've seen it before. Not a lot of players coming out of high school or very early in college do very well. I think Kwame Brown is very famous for that. But for the most part, I think a lot of them live up to the expectation, so to say.
Well, I mean, it's a basic thing. If they want to go make money at 18, they should be able to do so. And I think that's the major thing to do. If the NBA doesn't want them until they're 20, that's fine. They'll go play over in Europe. They'll go play somewhere else. But I think the NBA should want these guys if they're ready to go at 18. Kobe Bryant was ready to play in the NBA. Kevin Garnett was playing in the NBA. But not everybody is, and that's the point. But I think it should be like the baseball rule. If you want to go, you should be going 2 or 3 years, and you have to go to college. But you got to make a decision at 18.
I just don't. I think there's too many players that make the wrong mistake and throw too many things away. Because once you play professionally or you try to go, you lose your amateur status. Then you have to revert somewhere else in your career. I think there's too many kids that make the mistake at 18 that should have waited and had to at least experience a year of college, like a Josh Selby that maybe would have wanted to go to the NBA right after high school. Then he goes to a year at KU, and he still didn't seem like he would have played. And he's finally starting to get in the mix in the NBA, but it took a lot more time than he would have thought. So I think he's an example of someone who, at 18, thinks he has the right decision, but then in reality, he doesn't fit that mold quite as well.
But a guy like Selby wasn't interested in being here at college, it seemed like anyways.
True.
He's a guy that wanted to go make money, wanted to play professional basketball no matter what. So.
And you mentioned that too, but I think there's this factor where you've got to be smart too with your decision making. Look at Wayne Selden. This guy could have went to the NBA. He was expected to go in the first round. So I mean, there are those opportunities right there. Can players like Wayne Selden or Josh Selby benefit from it additionally? Obviously, Selby's gone, but a guy like Selden, yeah, definitely can benefit from it. Guys like Wiggins and Embiid, who of course Embiid today announced he's going to move on. Of course they can benefit, but they feel like they're at the level where there's not a whole lot to do in college basketball, so they can move on. So there's also that factor. Can you benefit from another year?
Bringing up European basketball is always a good way to get you a point. And with that, we now have a 3-way tie for first place, second place, and third place, with everyone having 1 point. Sticking with basketball, but going to the professional level, my question for you guys is, looking at the NBA playoffs coming up here, the Nets last night knocked off the Miami Heat to sweep the season series. Are the Nets going to be a legit contender going into the postseason?
I absolutely think so. I mean, for a team to just go out there and top the Miami Heat, if you told me that before the season, I said there was no way that was possible. But this is a team that really just came up with a tall order to go out there and top the Miami Heat. Adding Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce from the Boston Celtics. Of course, Boston kind of now in a rebuilding phase, but a couple of those guys coming to New Jersey, or I should say Brooklyn. These are guys who have really stepped up, and then guys like Joe Johnson, Brook Lopez, Darren Williams, a couple of guys who have really been in there. The Nets have so many pieces to the puzzle. Adding those guys, like the guys from Boston, Garnett and Pierce, that's really helped bring the Nets to where they are today, and that's why they're better than the Miami Heat. I think the unthinkable.
You think they're better than the Miami Heat?
Well, I mean, they've swept them. I mean, in the
it's
season
an entirely
series.
different ballgame.
It's the regular season.
I mean, that's understandable. But hey, I mean, if you're able to do it right, I mean, as of right now, is there any evidence?
Dwayne Wade's not playing half the games in the
Is there any evidence
season
right now that the Miami Heat are better? I mean, Dwayne
Yes,
Wade.
you look at LeBron James. He's by far the best player in basketball.
But he's not on the best team in basketball right
he's
now.
He's on the best team in the Eastern Conference.
They've won 2 titles. Are they not the best team?
They've won 2 straight. They've been to 3 straight titles. This is a joke of a question to me because the Nets probably won't even play the Heat. I don't think they get out of if they don't get out of the first round. If they're a 3 seed, then they'll maybe play the Pacers, which would be the likely scenario. I don't think they beat the Pacers. I don't think we should even talk about the Nets versus the Heat in the playoffs because the Heat are going to run through the East. It's as simple as that.
The only reason they have a shot is because Paul Pierce has done it in the past against LeBron James. That's the only reason they have a chance. But Paul Pierce is also in his mid to late 30s. So he's a pretty old player. Other than that, that's the only indicator that you have from the Nets that they can beat the Heat. The Pacers, if they get it right, are the only team that has an actual shot.
Jimmy's and the Joes to get it. I absolutely agree.
The Nets cannot beat the Heat in the playoffs.
Not a chance. I think you're crazy on this one.
Better than the Heat, Farzin?
I think so.
Yeah, you got to top the best.
The Heat have to fall at some point.
Yes, but it's not going to be to the Brooklyn
Oklahoma
Nets
City,
and
maybe.
the Brooklyn Nets
How about
nursing
the
home of a
Spurs? They
basketball
could lose to
team.
the Spurs. They're not going to lose to the Nets.
Sparks are flying on this question here. But the point we're going to give to Jackson, even though he did call it a joke of a question, and I wrote these questions, so I should take that a little bit as offense, but we're still going to give the point to Jackson. And for our final question before our commercial break, DGB just got suspended, as you may know, over with Missouri. And there has been a little bit of a concern with college athletes right now that their heads are just not in the game right now. We're looking at the Nadir Tharp situation here at KU. What do you guys think about athletes right now and what maybe their wherewithal and their thoughts are and being collegiate athletes? And do you think they take it for granted what the opportunity that they've been given?
I really don't. I think this is a scenario that has happened for a long time with any college athlete getting in trouble with the law. It's just getting reported about a lot more now with Twitter, social media, the amount of media outlets. That factors into how much people get scrutinized about it. I don't think that it's a over amount of college athletes getting in trouble with the law, in my opinion.
I think it's kind of on the same accord with Twitter and phone. Every phone has a camera these days. Things are being exposed more than they were, say, in the 90s or the 80s. And I'd say if you put the proportion of athletes that get in trouble to total athletes, it'd be pretty similar to, or probably less than, regular college kids that get in trouble compared to the total college group. So I just think it's a blown out of proportion thing. They see it, and obviously you don't want kids to do that. And it's a behavior thing that encompasses all college students, not just athletes. And I think that's probably the major factor there.
You mentioned a good point. You mentioned regular 18-year-olds versus these guys who are high-profile people. I mean, look, the reality is those people who are college football players, number one recruits coming out of high school, those people are going to be watched under a very tight microscope right there. You do one wrong thing, and it's going to be all over the internet. People are going to be talking about it on the news, the social media, the forums, those kinds of websites. The thing about DGB in those situations, and he's not the only one to be a victim of this, but people of his stature need to think twice, because as you said, everyone has a smartphone that can record video, put it online. You've got to be careful and think twice of what you do in the public, because one wrong thing, even the smallest thing, and people are going to be talking about it, because that's just the way things are nowadays.
Yeah, I think you look at like Johnny Manziel and his whole situation, and he didn't do anything exceptionally bad. He just wanted to live his life like a normal college student, and I don't blame him, but the fact is he has a spotlight, he has a camera on him at all times, and so he has to, I think, adapt his behavior a little bit, or maybe hide his behavior around something. I don't know what it is, but it's kind of nice to see Johnny now be a little bit escaped from the college scene and see him kind of be an adult and be able to carry himself like an adult.
Well, the one thing I want to add, a lot of people knew about Michael Sam and his personal situation, and the reason I bring that up is scouts know everything. It feels like, scouts are going to know a lot of things that even we don't know right now, even things that the media doesn't know. So these people need to be careful, because those scouts, those guys kind of decide their future. Those general managers and those coaches, they kind of decide. If DGB keeps this up and can move his head into the right direction, it's going to be hard to land a good job in the NFL one day.
But this is still pro football, and with a talent like Dorial Green Beckham,
The Raiders will draft him.
Somebody's going to give Dorial Green Beckham a chance. There's countless guys who have not done the best job at college who get a chance in the NFL, because the NFL is looking for the best players.
You can always do what Justin Houston did, kind of climb up, but you always want to have that clean record
Well,
as much as possible.
you do, but it doesn't mean that you can't make
That's
some money
right,
in the NFL eventually. So.
Talent will eventually trump all, I truly believe, until you cross a certain threshold at the behavioral level.
Bringing up scouts, another good way to get points. Farzin Vousoughian on the board with his second point. And that is all we have for the first half of our debate. Make sure you stay tuned after the commercial for the rest. Back to 3 in the key. The score is 2-2-1 with Jackson and Farzin in the lead and Ryan in third. We are going to jump right back with baseball. The Kansas City Royals right now have not started off the season as many had hoped. After the James Shields situation, in which they traded him away last year, and Will Myers doing pretty well down with the Tampa Bay Rays, there have been much discussion whether the offense is going to be able to keep up with the pitching and the rest of the Royals team. The Royals has yet to hit a home run so far, and Mike Moustakas only got his first hit last night. My question to you guys is, if the team continues to do badly, who will be the first person to go? Will it be Dayton Moore, the general manager, or Ned Yost, the coach?
Well, I think all the complaining needs to slow down just a little bit.
153 games left.
153 games left. Alex Gordon just hit a home run right before we walked in on the show. So I think it's a small sample size, and that needs to be taken into account when you look at this. The Royals really have a lot going for them. Their starting pitching has been phenomenal this year. If the bats come around and they have more holes or less holes in their lineup, you add Aoki in right field and Omar Infante, who's not going to be out too long with his jaw injury. The lineup is much improved. It'll only be a matter of time before, and we're talking about just 8 games. 3 and 4. This is no reason to freak out yet.
I completely agree with you, but if we're going to say if they continue to be bad, I think Yost is the first one that would go. I do not think that they're going to continue to be poor or play poorly with all the reasons that Jackson said, but if they continue to play, the way they are, they don't score very many runs, Mike Moustakas goes 1 for 57 or something like that, I think Yost would be probably the first one to go.
You make a good point when you mention, so many games still left. I think at the same time, you've got to consider every game matters. There's a reason why they have these amount of games. Then again, a 3 and 4 in baseball is completely different than 3 and 4 in football. I mean, those are completely different. The thing about the Royals you've got to keep in mind is they've got competition. They've got the talent this year to possibly make the playoffs for the first time in forever. And the thing is, the Detroit Tigers stand in their way. The Detroit Tigers are a very good baseball team. Now, what if the Tigers suddenly, start to struggle a little bit? There's that door of opportunity. It could come down to 1 or 2 games by the time the season's over with. So I think that's why the concern is. Yes, I do agree. Let's not jump right into all these judgments right here. Let's not hit the panic button just yet. I think we still have time to get things figured out. If we're in the end of May and we're still seeing some of these issues still be consistent, then yeah, I think at that point you've got to pull the plug. And I think really soon Ned Yost is going to be held accountable for this.
But to answer the question, I would say it's Dayton Moore because Dayton Moore has put together this process when he came in as the general manager, and I don't think that managers have as big of an impact on the game as most people make it out to be. It's about the players that play every day, and if you think that Moose is going to be your guy and that was a failure, Luke Hochevar, you think that this was, at this point, Moose is hitting awfully, and so that's a cornerstone that's failed. Luke Hochevar has failed. If things don't work out and you don't get this playoff push, when you sold away Will Myers and Jake Odorizzi in that trade to get Shields and you don't make the playoffs under Shields, then that's a GM personnel move, and that's why I think that Moore is more in danger than Yost to get fired.
And when we talk about the playoffs, it's not just the Tigers. I mean, they're still thinking about a wild card spot.
2 wild card spots.
So you're looking at the Rays, you're looking at the A's, you're looking at the Rangers, Yankees, Red Sox. All those teams are going to be in front of the Royals too. I think they got to win 86 to 90 games to even be considered a wild card team because the AL is stacked at the top this year.
And with those points, Jackson Long has taken the lead with 3 points now. We're going to go ahead and cut our KU quarterback question. I'm sorry for you guys who are going with that. But we're going to go ahead and jump in with Miles Turner. Miles Turner is one of the few guys left who is still not decided on which college he will be attending in the next semester. And with Joel Embiid leaving today, there have been many speculations whether he will be his replacement. My question to you guys is, where will Miles Turner end up?
I think with the McDonald's All-American just being very recently, I think, having Cliff Alexander and Kelly Oubre there, I saw some reports that, I think Cliff Alexander, was trying to convince him a little bit. And those are always good right there. But as of now, it's hard to say. We don't know where he could end up. Kansas, obviously, a nice landing spot. I think with the opportunities, Wiggins leaving just recently and Embiid today, I think there are opportunities, come in. There will be some playing time given. So, I think Kansas is a good opportunity because there are those open spots. Obviously, they'll be filled right away with Oubre and Alexander, but even Turner could come in and have a big hand in KU's success next year. So I think KU could be a landing spot, but as of now, I don't know for sure.
There's like 40 teams on his list still for Miles Turner, but what I've heard is it's down to 2 teams. It's Kansas and it's Texas. Yeah. Those are the 2 teams that he's shown the most interest in, and I really can't make a prediction yet with him. He has been all over the place. I read somewhere that he doesn't have any of the contact directly shuffled to him. His parents go through all the stuff. So I really don't know. It is going to be Kansas or Texas, regardless if Rivals has got 35 teams or 40 teams listed on their website.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's Kansas or Texas. He is a Texas guy. He's from the Dallas area, so it's going to be one of those 2 teams, whether he wants to play locally or really the door opened up pretty nicely for Embiid, or with Embiid's departure today, and I think he fits that mold perfectly, a 7-footer and a guy that fits the shot blocking role, the perfect fit in Bill Self's system. I think he starts, honestly, and either Cliff Alexander or maybe Perry Ellis. I think it'll be Cliff coming off the bench.
Is he the same as Embiid? Because he was in the 3-point contest at the McDonald's All-American, though, so he's not the normal. He's not the normal big guy. You can sit out there and shoot threes all day.
Well, Embiid was athletic as well. He just hadn't refined his game.
But Embiid wasn't shooting threes all the time.
He made a couple of threes.
Yeah, a couple. I think the big important factors that Miles Turner needs to look into. of course, coaching. Who is he going to get who's going to, let me reword that, which coach is going to bring the best out of him? I think that's one of the things you've got to consider.
You go to Wake Forest with Danny Manning.
Well, there you go.
Man coach.
We're cutting you off here, guys. We got to get one more question and decide who's going to win. Ryan McCarthy gets his second point of the game today. This will be worth double points. Whoever wins this point ultimately will win it all. The final question is, will Coach Calipari take the Lakers job if it is offered to him?
No. I don't really want to elaborate on that because it's all rumors. So no, he's not going to get the Lakers job.
If it opens up.
He's not getting the job. Okay. They don't want him.
I agree. They don't. There's no side from the Lakers here that say they want the job. It's just a speculation. It's a media buzzwheel, I think. And Calipari's done a great job at Kentucky. And as much as people will want to say it, he's pretty ingrained there in Rep Arena with the recruiting that he gets, as well as the coaching. He actually coaches pretty well, and most people don't get him. He gets a bad rap at KU, certainly. But the recruits he brings in on a daily basis, it seems daily, literally, that he gets these top 5 recruits. I think he's set in stone here at Kentucky for a time to come.
Real quickly, you look at Mike Krzyzewski. He had that opportunity in 04, but he just has a big passion for the game of college basketball versus the NBA. Coaching and those two are completely different, but the Lakers, I mean, that name itself kind of speaks for itself right there. I mean, they're one of the top teams. When is the Lakers job ever going to be open in a time like this? I'm going to disagree with you. I think if that opportunity is open, it never will be again. I think Calipari takes it.
But do we know if the opportunity is open?
Phil Jackson didn't get $10 million from the Lakers to coach the team, but John Calipari is going to get $10 million from the Lakers to coach the team.
I don't know what the money
in the NBA.
I know.
I think it's a different.
But if he's ready, I'm just saying if that job is being offered to him, I think he takes it.
And for the 2-point question winner to win the entire debate today, we love controversy. Farzin Vousoughian with the 2 points to take the lead, 4-3-2. We want to thank you guys for tuning in today. Make sure you follow us at 3InKey, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you next week.